Hey, Kyle. As far as returning to the facility and resuming practices, whenever that might be, as a player, what are your concerns and what kind of precautions would you like to see in place before all that starts to happen?
You know what? I think at the end of the day, we just want everything to be safe. And so whatever that means, whatever, that's kind of outside of my realm. I don't know exactly what it's going to take for all of us to be safe, in this environment right now. But I'm sure there's some much more intelligent people than me that will know what it'll take for us to be able to, as a team, be on the field, interact with one another, and kind of, resume things the way that we had them, but with some adaptations. So I think that'll all be settled, once they start diving into this a little bit deeper.
Hey, Kyle, this is Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area. What are you able to do just to get yourself mentally and physically ready for the season whenever it happens, as well as the working part with your teammates on offense? What's been some of the challenges that you faced?
I think the biggest challenge is just not physically being with one another and not being able to get on field reps. As far as getting in the weight room, being able to run on the field, I've been able to do all that. I've been lucky enough to have those facilities. So I've been good there. The meetings have actually gone incredibly well. These Zoom meetings it hasn't differed too much from when we're in the facility. We still have great banter back and forth, great discussion. And I mean, the film is up there on your iPad, just like if you were sitting in your meeting room and looking at a projection screen and the coach is talking over it. And it's still very interactive. So that's been good. But I just think the biggest obstacle is not being with each other on the football field, and, to be able to get those reps of reacting to a defender, or vice versa for a defensive guy reacting to an offensive guy in front of them. Those are things that are hard to simulate.
Kyle, this is Chris Biederman from the Sacramento Bee. Entering the last year of your contract, I know the boilerplate answer would be you're focused on what happens on the field and all of that. But given that the league is potentially facing a scenario where there might not be fans in the stands, it could lead to a dramatic loss in revenue, which could obviously impact the salary cap. I'm wondering your thoughts on that, being a potential free agent a year from now, how that could impact your future, and if you've had any conversations with any other players in the league or teammates that could be getting a new contract next spring, and how that's impacting them.
Yeah, I haven't had any conversations with anyone else about it. And honestly, I just kind of learned, or, realized that, revenue would be impacted by not having fans in the stands, and that, that correlates with the cap. Honestly, that just kind of came into play for me a few days ago. So I haven't put a ton of thought into it. I'm pretty sure that regardless, the cap, I don't think it's ever going to go down. I could be wrong, so somebody correct me if I am. But it is one of those things where I focus on what I can control, and that really is what I do on the field and how I'm able to help this team. So as long as I can continue to do that and help this team win, I know that those things will take care of themselves. And I know that Kyle and John, have looked at me favorably, and I think they'll take care of me.
Hey, Kyle, this is Eric Branch with the San Francisco Chronicle. I think early on in this, we saw you doing some like Rocky-like training in the snow. Is that, I assume there's no snow, but kind of what has your training been like? And was that an exception to the rule? Was that something you incorporated quite a bit?
So early on in the off season, I moved into a new house in New York. And so I was still kind of getting my bearings and figuring out where I was going to be training, where I was going to be doing everything. And I was lucky enough that my wife's family has a cabin in upstate New York. And while I was still trying to figure things out, and we were going up there to kind of just get away from everything, I thought it was a great time to take advantage of some unusual training, things I don't usually do. And that really worked out perfectly. I like to do that kind of stuff anyways in the off season, maybe not as much as I have this year. I have incorporated a little bit more just because sometimes it is hard to get into a gym or a facility like that, or a standard facility. But it is something that I would usually do a little bit. So I enjoyed it, and I think it's going to, help improve my game. It's always good to step out of the box and try something that you're not always as comfortable with, or is not your typical routine. So I think it's really just going to help me out.
Hey, Juice, this is MJ Acosta from NFL Network. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. So yesterday, Governor Newsom here in California said that sports could potentially be returning as early as June in the state, with no fans, of course. Obviously still before the football season, but for you as a player, does that give you some level of hope that things can continue on track and on pace for the NFL season, and even maybe a glimmer of hope for training camp to still happen as planned?
Yes, definitely. I think that was a good step in the right direction. It would definitely be different playing if we did get to the season and have to play without fans. That would be a little bit different element. But at the same time, that's something that we do in practice every day. And at times you don't even notice it. But you really do. You enjoy the energy that the fans bring to a game. It definitely adds to the momentum of the game. So that'll be something different. But I do think we're taking steps in the right direction, and hopefully we can have training camp as planned in Santa Clara. But if not, this team's pretty well versed at practicing away from home. We were in Youngstown last year. We were in Denver. We were down in Florida before the New Orleans game, and we did pretty well off of each one of those weeks. So I think that's something that we'll be well equipped to handle.
Hey, Kyle, this is Cam Inman from the San Jose Mercury News. Can you take me inside the Zoom meetings real quick and just, one, have you guys had any special speakers crash your meetings and just kind of keep things loose? And then two, when you talk about the good banter that goes back and forth, what's Jimmy Garoppolo's demeanor been in the offensive meetings or team meetings?
Yeah, so we've done a number of different things. So we've had just position meetings where I've been with the running backs, and it's just us. Kyle loves to come in and interrupt and crack some jokes and just kind of keep things loose, and just really just check in with us on a personal level and just see kind of how everyone's doing, what's going on at home. Kind of get away from the football for a second. Other than that, we're football all the way in our running back meetings. But then recently we've been doing offensive skill meetings together where Kyle's been running the meeting himself. And we usually, we start the day with some banter. Jimmy's always involved. We have a very close-knit group, and we can all poke fun at each other. People love throwing up old pictures as their background. Kittle's the king of it, as you would imagine, of always keeping things light and putting up pictures of Jimmy from middle school or high school prom or whoever it is. So we have a good time with it, but then we always buckle down. We get a lot of really good work in. It's been super refreshing, to be totally honest with you, how much work we have been getting done in these Zoom meetings, and how much I've been able to learn going into my 8th year and playing in this offense for quite a while now. We've really been able to dive into the nitty gritty and the details of this offense, because we don't have anything that we're really preparing for that week. We don't have practice where we have to get ready for a certain script and we're going to run these plays this week. So we have to install them quickly, and we can't really go over them too thoroughly. That's not the case right now. We can really go through everything thoroughly and learn as an entire group. Where wide receivers are learning exactly what the tight ends are being coached when we're in these offensive skill meetings with Kyle, and across the board, everybody's learning what everyone else is learning. So it's been refreshing, and I think it's been really productive.
Hey, Kyle, this is David Lombardi from The Athletic. Speaking of Jimmy, I know earlier in the offseason, maybe even after the shutdown, you kind of did a little bit of a media tour and you were defending Jimmy. I'm wondering, What you make of all this? It seems that there's been a lot of chatter about him, whether it be with Tom Brady, now with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. What do you make of all that, especially since he is coming off a good season statistically? And where do you think he can go this next year, given all that you were just saying, with all this time to be able to master the offense in his second full year as a starter?
Yeah, I was disappointed that I saw the headline of one of the articles recently that I was tired of being Jimmy's bodyguard. That's absolutely not what I said. I said I feel like I've been Jimmy's bodyguard this offseason, but I've never been tired of it. I'll continue to do it right now. It's crazy to me that he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, for what a phenomenal season I think he had, for the numbers that he put up, the way he led this team. He was no doubt our leader on offense, and he brought us to a Super Bowl and within 7 minutes of winning one. So for him not to get the respect that I feel he deserves is pretty wild to me. But I really do think that things are only going to trend up. I think he's only going to get better. This time to really dive into the nitty gritty is just going to continue to help him. And it's more and more reps. And we have a full season of him starting where he can go back and rewatch the tape and spend extra time on watching himself, because sometimes it is tougher when you're watching somebody else play your position and you're trying to learn the offense through that, which he was doing for a little bit. Now you're actually watching yourself. You know what you were feeling in that moment. You got to experience it yourself. So you can just learn a little bit more from it, having been through it now.
Hey, Kyle, Jennifer Lee Chan. This is the first time we've talked to you since Joe Staley announced his retirement. Can you share your favorite Joe Staley memory and just talk up a little bit about what he meant to the offense for the last few years while you were there?
Yeah, man. It's definitely gonna be tough losing Joe. He one of my favorite teammates of all time. Just always kept things light, but also was such a professional, and always was willing to put his body on the line out there. And I've seen him battle through so many injuries and be happy to do it. The guy's just had an unbelievable career, and it's been a phenomenal teammate. I think one of my favorite memories is probably right after the Super Bowl. He was contemplating his retirement, and I think it was in the morning, we're on the bus ride to the airport, and he's, guys, I think I'm gonna retire. And I'm like, come on, Joe, we still need you, man. Let's get another year. He's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna retire. 10 minutes go by. He's like, guys, I don't know. I'm 50-50. I just got to think about it. Another 10 minutes pass. Yeah, I think I might come back. Let's just give it some more time. And then by the time we got to the airplane, he's like, I'm coming back. I got to play. Obviously, things didn't turn out that way, but you could just see the wheels turning in his head and what a competitor he was and how much he really did love the game. And I know under perfect conditions, I'm sure he'd still like to be out here with us. But Joe will have a lasting impression on me, and I'm really happy to have him to have played with him as a teammate.
Hey, Kyle, it's Tracy Sandler. There's been a lot of talk recently about the mental health component of COVID-19. And over the last couple months, as it looked like there may or may not be a season, you may or may not play with fans. Is that something that you and your teammates have talked about or that you have thought about at all? And what's the feeling there?
We haven't put a ton of thought into that, I don't think. We have reached out in these Zoom meetings and, told each other if there's anything anyone needs, we're all here to talk. But I think we've been lucky enough to be able to still do things like these virtual meetings, these Zoom meetings, and still have interaction with one another. And that's definitely, I think, very important for your mental health, is to still have that interaction and, see your teammates, see your friends, and just continue to develop those relationships. All that kind of stuff is super important. But I think as football players, as athletes, you've been trained your whole lives not to look too far down the line. So I don't, at least speaking for myself, I haven't thought too much about the possibility of not playing football this season, because it is so far down the line that I just haven't given myself I haven't given myself that kind of time to think about what would happen if that were the case and how I would handle that. I've really just tried to focus on what we're doing right now and look a week or two ahead at a time and not really go too much further than that.
Hi, Kyle. Grant. I got another Zoom question for you. When you're in your position meetings or your offensive skill meetings, do you ever get an opportunity to like stand up in your living room and walk through your assignments, or are these meetings discussions?
So far, it's been discussions for us. We haven't done too much actual interactive where you're standing up and walking around. I could imagine that being pretty entertaining, and I think there could be some productivity from that. But so far, right now, it's just been discussions.
Kyle, Matt Mayoko again. How involved are Mike LaFleur and Mike McDaniel in those meetings? And the NFL just passed a rule today that teams can't block their assistants from bona fide coordinator positions. How ready? Kind of lumping both of the mics together, but how ready are those guys to run an offense?
Yeah, they've been extremely involved and are absolutely, both of them could run their own offense right now. Probably could have years ago. Right now, LaFleur and McDaniel have been recording, pre-recording videos for us to watch on all our pass concepts, on our run game, and they've done a lot of them. Like I'm talking like probably like 30, 15-minute videos where they're just literally in their living room in front of a projector, going over how we install everything and really just installing the offense for Kyle. And then we go into these offensive skill meetings and Kyle elaborates on what they've already installed. So I think I truly believe that both of them are so capable and so ready to run their own offenses. It's going to be a bummer for us when we lose one of them. They're going to be really hard to replace because they're really so valuable and important to this offense and contribute so much to what we do as a team.
Kyle, this is Chris again. You mentioned Jimmy and all this discussion, outside discussion surrounding him. How has he handled that, in your opinion, just based on your contact with him this offseason?
He seems to have handled it like the way Jimmy has handled everything. He's exactly the same guy that he always is in these meetings. And, you haven't seen any crazy media lash outs from him or him be down on himself or anything like that. It's just Jim. And he comes to work every day, works his butt off, has the same demeanor every day. And the outside noise, it truly doesn't seem to affect him.
Hi, Kyle. It's Carlos Ramirez from the 49ers Spanish radio broadcast and Telemundo 48. I don't know if you know this, but yesterday, Tom Mayer, who's the NFL Players Association medical director, said on a podcast that the league is testing modified breathable coverings for helmets for the future made out of the N95 surgical mask. Do you know anything about this, and how do you even prepare to play with such a helmet?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything about that. That's super interesting. If that's something that we need to do to be safe, then if that'll get us on the field, by all means, let's do it. But I haven't heard anything about that. That would be super interesting. And, I imagine the only way to adapt to something like that is to start training with something like that, start training with a mask on, that sort of thing. So that'll be super interesting to see how that plays out.